It's Winning Moves Week! That's right, this week we are celebrating the classics. We're talking Life, Monopoly, Scrabble, Clue, Guess Who, Risk, Pretty Princess. That one's near and dear to my heart. I thought we could kick off this week with an interview with one of the co-founders of Winning Moves. That's right, I talked to Phil Orbanes. Let's go take a look. All right, so here we are with Phil Orbanes from Winning Moves. Thank you so much for sitting down with us, Phil.
I am so glad to be here, Joe. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's just kick things off. Tell us, bird's eye view, what is Winning Moves?
Well, Winning Moves is a game company located in Massachusetts, in the neighborhood of where Parker Brothers used to thrive. And we actually have a relationship with Hasbro to publish the classic edition of most of their beloved games, whether it's Monopoly or Clue or Candyland or Twister or Risk, my favorite. And we make sure that the quality is every bit as good, if not better, than when the game was first on the market and flourishing. We also own Pass the Pigs, No Stress Chess, and the Twistables brand of cube puzzles.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did it all begin? Tell me, give me a brief history of Winning Moves.
Winning Moves has been a viable game company since 1995, so we're celebrating our 28th year.
Wow,
And it all
congratulations.
began with a man named Tom Kramer, who was the Hungarian/British agent who discovered Erno Rubik and the Rubik's Cube back in 1980. And Tom, through his company, Seven Towns, an inventing company, managed to secure the rights and license it around the world. And I happen to have given Tom Kramer his start in America
Oh
a
yeah?
few years earlier. So Tom always had a high regard for me. Of course, I had a high regard for Tom. And then at Toy Fair, I think it was 1994, Tom asked to have dinner with me, and he said, I have an idea. My idea is to start a game company in America that will uh, concentrate on specialty items, not mass market items like in those days Milton Bradley and Parker Brothers were publishing. And we need you because you know how to run a company with all the experience. We'll get to that. And so Tom and two other game industry veterans and myself formed Winning Moves. I became the president, and I had the rather daunting task back then of starting from scratch and convincing consumers and the trade that they actually needed another game company. And it took about 3 years, but we got on our feet, and that's how it started. And 28 years later, it's flourishing.
That's amazing. I love that. I love hearing that. Okay, so let's talk about you for a second. How long have you been interested in the game scene?
Well, I like to tell everyone that my interest in games actually ignited when I was 8 years old,
Yeah.
and it's never left me. The story that I often tell is that at age 8, my favorite aunts and uncles invited me to play this wonderful game with money in it called Monopoly, which I'd never seen before. And I loved it so much that I persuaded my mother to buy a copy for us, which she did. And then 2 weeks later, I was charged up and I said, would you please buy me Clue? Which with a little bit of reluctance, she did. And then 2 weeks after that, I wanted the third game. And she simply said to me, no, Philip, you have to wait till your birthday. Well, I was not deterred. I decided to make my own game. And I remember that I fabricated my own game using her marvelous two-color typewriter, by the way. You know, the ribbon had red and black on it, so I could make two-color cards, and the board, in two colors and whatnot. And from that point on, I realized that I just had a knack for inventing games, and I loved the game business. And by the time I graduated high school, I started my own game company, which I sold in my junior year of college and went right into the game business following college. Um, and among the more important positions that I've had in my career was the director of the game division at Ideal Toy in New York, which at the time was the third largest toy and game company. And then thereafter, for a long time, I was senior vice president at Parker Brothers. And that was my dream job, if you
Yeah.
will, to be with the company that actually made Monopoly and Clue and Risk and whatnot. After that, I started my own R&D company to service the toy and game industry. And then came that fateful day in 1994 when Tom said, "I have an idea." And I agreed to join.
I love that. So you were bit by the bug young and you've been continuing with it. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
I know a lot of people have to find their career. My career found me, and it never let go.
That's great. That's great. You guys make tons of games. You produce all the classics. Personally, my favorite was Life. I always liked Life growing up. There's
Oh, yeah.
something about the tangible aspect of driving around and putting the people in the cars as you grew your family. That always excited me.
Well, there's so much I can tell you about the game of life and its background in another interview
Absolutely. Oh, we'll do a
because
deep
I had
dive.
to become an expert in that game for other reasons, but we'll talk about that some other time.
All right, sounds good to me. Okay, so how do you guys go about deciding what games you're going to acquire and which games you're going to produce?
We have a executive at Winnie Moose who's responsible for innovations and acquisitions, and she works closely with Hasbro first of all to find out which of their classic games would be available for license in the following year. And she also covers the entire professional game inventing community to find new ideas. And if there's anything, Joe, that I've learned in all of my years of experience, it is that you really can't dictate to the inventing community what it is that they should be working on because their strength is creating what's not been envisioned before. And you need the new ideas that you can't, extrapolate, if you will, by prior experience. So between the classics from Hasbro and the off the wall ideas from the inventing community, we put together a product line. And we do a two-phase product line. We have several new items that are introduced in February at Toy Fair, but we also have what we call our fall line, which are a few supplemental items that we'll publish during the summer.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
So how does the game publishing process work? You pick a game. Do you? I mean, I know you guys want to recreate a lot of the older games in their original essence, but do you ever do any sort of improvements, or how does that work?
Oh, yeah. Well, first, let me talk about what happens after Laura
Yeah.
assembles a lot of these ideas. She'll look through them and decide which ones really might be able to be shaped up for inclusion in the line. And then generally, most of the people at Winnie Moves at some point or another will play it. And they'll either offer criticism, and the criticism could be, the rules are complicated, or it's too many pieces, or it's been done before, or they'll also highlight the attributes. Wow, this is different. This was fun. We got it quickly. Uh, and those items that seem to have merit, we will then put into play testing. And we have a room in our company with a one-way mirror, which was a technique I learned at Parker Brothers, where our head of marketing will actually bring in consumers of the appropriate age group to test each new game. And it's only really when you get a new game in front of consumers that you find out what you have.
Oh yeah.
So sometimes we'll do several rounds of consumer play testing to shore up the weaknesses if we really like the idea, or to build on the strengths that they identify. And if a game that we have put all of that effort into passes, if you will, the consumer test, and if its cost is reasonable, then it will go into our line.
That's fantastic. That's great. I really I find that fascinating, the one way mirror uh, aspect, because then you get to in real time get to experience what they're experiencing without the whole idea that
Well,
they're playing it up for
yeah,
you watching.
that's so true. Now, it's not that the one-way mirror is like we're snooping.
Of course not. Yeah.
It's that we are not in the room, and that's
Yes.
really important. So when we get to a point where a game has written rules, we'll bring the play testers in. They'll sit around a table that's very comfortable. They're by themselves. Uh, they read the rules and they play the game based upon having read them, not having had them explained.
Yeah.
The marketing people are not seen. They're outside and they're looking through the one-way window, and they can very easily see, well, we have a problem with the wording of this sentence. It's confusing, or they just don't like it,
Yeah.
or they're raving about it. Whatever it is, they're uninhibited because no one is there to make them feel they need to be socially responsible. If you're hovering over them, they'll try to give you the answers they think you want, not necessarily how they feel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's fantastic. I love that concept. So, how much time would you guys say that you? How much time would you say you spend playtesting these games? Is it weeks, months?
Well, the whole process could take a few weeks if it goes smoothly. Um, but the short answer is we try to devote as much time as required to perfect a game that really has merit. And we also try to very quickly identify a game that just has uh, too many shortcomings to overcome. And very often, by the way, the shortcoming is just simply that uh, it's too expensive to make. Consumers probably won't buy it for the price we'd have to charge. Um, it's not necessarily just because it's a poor playing game.
Sure, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's something that people don't necessarily take into account often is the cost of making things. You got a lot of intricate pieces and stuff. It's going to be a little more difficult because then you have to have someone probably overseas come out and make the molds and everything. So,
And
yeah,
that's all part of the equation.
exactly, exactly. Okay, so you've been with the company since '94, right?
Well, 95, yeah, 94 was the year we planned it. 95 we launched. So if you count 95 as the start, I've been there 28 years, and I was the president until 2013, when I realized I had so many good, talented people working for me. It was time to move on, to just be a member of the board and to advise. And so since 2013, the top executives have run the company, and I'm delighted because they've done better than I did.
Okay, so in your time since '95, what would you say you are most proud of at the company?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's endurance, because a company that lasts for 28 years and that is very solid is to me, that's a cherished accomplishment.
Absolutely.
I've,
And not
I've,
just 28 years, but 28 years and, you have recessions in there, the pandemic. Like, you guys have lasted through a lot. So
yeah,
that's fantastic.
well, I had the good fortune of working at Parker Brothers in particular and learning some excellent uh, business do's and don'ts and some great management system skills, all of which in some way I was able to bring to winning moves and prevent us from, experiencing the highs and the lows that a lot of companies do that haven't had that advantage. So
Absolutely.
number one was endurance, and the fact that we're we're solid today and have a very good reputation. Secondly, it's attracting so many talented people who are there. As far as they're concerned, this is their career, period. And I think the average employee at Winning Moves has been there 15 years.
Wow.
And, when I worked for larger companies, one of my great heartaches was we'd lose good people for whatever reason. They'd move on to some outside firm to get the next step up in their career, or maybe they just didn't fit. And then you have to retrain and re-inculcate.
Yeah.
And especially given the fact that not that many people are like me or you, someone who really appreciates the game business. A lot of people are not necessarily tuned into that. So it sometimes takes 2 or 3 years, if you will, to train a person into the nuances of what makes this business so unique, and then to go from there. So that's finding the right people is the second, and the third thing is just all the great products. I'm just delighted that we have items like the original Risk version with the wooden armies and the great packaging and the plastic boxes for storage. I love having 1949 Clue, the original game, and also, the wonderful story behind Candyland is included in our original 1948 version. So it's a fulfilling experience. And as I've often told, people who ask me, well, what attracts you to the game industry? I've often said to them, if we do our job well, we make people happy. And that's something that not everybody can claim in the job that they have to do. So
Absolutely. I feel like that's one of the most noble pursuits you could have is
yeah,
just making others happy. And I've got to say, it's the fourth quarter, so sometimes I'm out working in the warehouse helping people out when we're a little short-staffed. And one of my
sure.
favorite things is seeing all the old school Winning Moves games in their original packaging and being like, I remember that exact box from when I was a kid.
Yeah,
Because so often when, companies put out like re-release games, they're in new packaging and the game's still great, but you just miss a little bit of that nostalgia.
yeah. It's not. I mean, a good case in point is we do the original Yahtzee with the sort of the corny professor on the cover and the rather nondescript blue and yellow package. But that is such an icon.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that if I have it out in my house and people come over, they'll say, I remember that. So if we had changed the packaging, I wouldn't, they wouldn't connect. They wouldn't have that heartthrob.
Exactly. And like I said, I'm looking at hundreds of boxes of games when I'm doing this, and then I can't help myself from just like stopping for just a moment whenever I see those classic games, and it just makes me warms my heart.
Yeah, me too.
All right, Phil. Well, I won't take you too much more of your time, but I do have to ask one last question. What's the future look like for Winning Moves?
Well, I think it's perhaps a bit more certain than other companies because we know that we'll be partnering with Hasbro to do more classic editions. But I also will say that one of the things that we're starting to do now is to do contemporary versions of their classic games. And this one is by far, I'm going to put this in front, this one is by far our newest and most successful. This is
Monopoly Scrabble.
This is the new hot item that we did this year. Now, I saw this, as did Laura, from an inventing firm many years ago, but it took a long time to persuade Hasbro that we should bring this to market. Now they're fully behind it. What's so ingenious about this game is if you look at the game board, you'll notice that the Scrabble board is inside the Monopoly track.
Yeah.
Now, you play Scrabble, and whatever your score is on a turn, that's how many spaces you move your token.
Okay.
So that gives you the opportunity to sort of hopefully get to where you want to go. And then the Monopoly portion on the outside is actually a streamlined version of Monopoly. So the entire game takes an hour or less.
Wow. Wow. So not only are you kind of like improving upon a very common critique of Monopoly, but you're also sort of Frankensteining it together with another classic
Right.
game.
And instead of coming out looking like a monster, it comes out looking like a beauty contest winner.
Exactly, because it does look
The
good.
moment I saw this at the Inventors years ago, I just knew that this was just too ingenious for words. And we're finding that the consumer also responds in kind.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, that's amazing. I can't wait to try that because I love Scrabble and I love the first 30 minutes of Monopoly. And then it kind of starts to get a little competitive, starts to Monopoly is one of those games that not everyone can enjoy.
No, it evokes sort of a polar extreme in people. Either they
Exactly.
love it or they say it's too much cheating. It takes too long. But I can tell you one more thing before we
Yeah.
wrap up. Fortunately, I had the opportunity at Parker Brothers and thereafter to serve as the chief judge at U.S., Canadian, and world tournaments. And when the best players play the game in tournament fashion by the rules, a Monopoly game is over in 60 to 90 minutes,
Really?
more typically around 65 or 70.
Oh wow.
And that's playing by the rules. That's,
Yeah.
without all the house rules that labor the game and slow it down.
Exactly. That's fascinating. That's fascinating. I would be interested in seeing that and watching, people who are at the top of their game, so to speak,
Yeah.
playing.
Oh, to me, that's been a great honor to watch the best players in the world and to learn from them.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. All right, Phil. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me. It's been my pleasure. Absolutely. Love the company, love the games that you're putting out,
Thank
and
you.
love how you are putting them out. I love those classic boxes. Those are fantastic.
Thanks.
And I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
It would be wonderful if we had an opportunity. Thanks, Joe.
Let's do it. All right.
The best to you and yours for the holiday season and for a great close of the year to Argue Game.
Thank you very much, and the same to you.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, did you like that video? Why not run down there and give it a little like? Or write in the comments what you liked about it. Better yet, you could hit this button right here to subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with all our fun videos. Speaking of those fun videos, you can click right here to watch some of them, huh? And if you're watching this on your phone and I'm just kind of doing this and there's no buttons over there, just use your imagination. Okay, bye, love you!